I know it's this level of professionalism that keeps you guys coming back week after week. Okay. So we're continue here in our series, Signs and Wonder, and just a brief reminder of kind of the hope for this series. Signs is a term in philosophy. A sign is made up of a signifier and a signified. The signified is what is attempting to be described by the one using the signifier. But obviously, no matter how accurate we attempt to be with our words, we will never arrive at a way to describe exactly what it is, the concept, the object, particularly when we move into the realm of the transcendent, when we begin to talk about God. Words obviously fall short. The other little angle in here, not just our inability to completely capture what it is that we're describing, but also the reality that all of us come to almost every word with our own set of preconceived ideas of what that word means, and these are based on what we've been taught and what we've learned and our experiences and all kinds of things, right? There's a filter that we're processing everything through, otherwise we can never make sense of the world. It's the only way we can move around and navigate. And what that means is that like our little, like what's going on here is this guy saying the word, and his audience, they all are saying, oh yeah, the word, I know what that means, but one of them's picturing the Bible, the other one's picturing Jesus, this one's picturing a preacher, the other one's picturing love. It's got to mean love, and so they're all in agreement, the word, right, but they're all thinking completely different things. And that can be sort of like maddening on one level because we want clarity. But there's another way to look at it. It's not clarity's okay, but there's another way to look at it where, like Miriam was saying a couple weeks back, is that the fact that these words can carry such a diversity of meaning, if we notice the part of us that is resistant to understanding it in a way that's different from how we're used to, because being stretched is uncomfortable and accommodating new information, based on how, like, there are times when I'm like wide open for it, and then there are other times when I'm tired, and it's like the last thing I can do right now is try to understand what it is that you mean, because I don't think it's what I mean, and I just don't think I have the juice, this, just noticing that there's, for a lot of us, a lot of the time, some resistance to trying to accommodate a different way to understand something, especially when it's something that we hold very close, something we consider to be sort of like a core or central, identity piece of who it is that we think we are. It can be difficult to accommodate a different perspective. But if we can work with that and listen to understand before trying to be understood, what happens is we move into this place of wonder, the good kind of wonder, the awe at how big and how good God is, this world that God has created us is, the people that we're surrounded by are. Things can open up. And so as we go through these different words, one thing I felt like mentioning this morning is like we'll talk about prayer this morning. And this may be a new perspective, this may be a familiar perspective, however it finds you. Like, what we're not trying to say and what we're never trying to say each week is like, forget everything you've ever heard about prayer. Like, everything you ever knew was wrong. Here is how it really is. That like we're kind of like that's how culture presents everything to us. And so part of us kind of hears from that angle, like what are they selling? And they're trying to convince me that what I currently have isn't enough and that I should pick up this other thing because maybe that's not what, this is just another way to look at it. Another way to experience prayer. And so how about you? What is, when I say prayer, when you hear this word prayer, what do you think of? What are your thoughts about prayer? Stillness. What was this? Talking to Jesus. Bow your head, close your eyes. Yeah.
Telling God asking God what he's asked me to ask him.
That's good. Asking God what he's asked me to ask him.
Remind God of his promises.
Reminding God of his promises. Interesting. The garden. Jesus praying in the garden. Yeah. Yeah, that kind of like, I guess, one-on-one. Yeah. That's good. I am yet to meet somebody when we move into the area of like, we're just having a conversation, we get into the topic of prayer. So almost universally people carry around a sense of guilt, like they're not doing it right, or they're not doing it enough, or they're, I've never met somebody who's like, it's right where I want it. Prayer life, the only thing in life right now that I am nailing, like, and so that makes me wonder, and I mean, I've felt that way for a lot of my life too, just like, am I doing this wrong? Like, and that does make me curious that there would be such a tremendous, for some, a big sense of like guilt or shame, I guess, kind of surrounding this idea of prayer, this idea that I should be doing it more. I remember when I was 20, I think it was the first time I ever read, I think it's 1 Thessalonians. Somebody fact check me. Dave Linger, where are you? I think it's 1 Thessalonians. That pray without ceasing verse. You pray at all times, pray without ceasing. It actually means like all the time. Never stop. And I remember hearing that or reading that and thinking, good Lord. I was 20, I was like, I can barely pray like in the morning for like 2 minutes before the day starts. Like it's never stop, like this constant conversation that I would meet people, young people, and like I was doing missions, and maybe they were, but they appeared to be doing that, you know what I mean? Like that was sort of how they explained their prayer life. They're checking in about outfits and hairdos and all kinds of stuff. And so I thought, hey, maybe that's, So why is it that my mind wanders then? And in preparing to share this week about prayer, I thought, well, let's see what Jesus has to say about prayer. And the first thing I read was like a parable, which is not one of his most famous parables, and you might see why. It's kind of an odd little story. And so when I first read it, I was like, oh, that's weird. Maybe I'll try to. This is here. You guys get to see my process. I was like, oh, I don't know about that. What else did Jesus have to say about prayer? But I couldn't get it out of my head. It kept coming around again and again, and like making me look at it. And so finally, I did, and I just kind of want to share a little bit about some of my observations about this parable. They've been helpful for me, and hopefully they are for you as well. And so that's what we read. This is Luke 18. So Jesus said to his disciples, he told them this parable to show them that they should always pray and not give up, kind of like what Paul was saying. He said, in a certain town there was a judge, and this judge neither feared God nor cared what people thought. And there was a widow in that town who kept coming to him with the plea, grant me justice against my adversary. Now for some time the judge refused, but finally he said to himself, even though I don't fear God or care what people think, it's interesting, interior thought. He had to remind himself. I don't fear God, I don't care what people think. But, geez, goodness, man. This widow keeps bothering me. And so I'll see that she gets justice so that she won't eventually come and attack me. So she's being pretty persistent. And the Lord said, listen to what the unjust judge says. Will not God bring about justice for his chosen ones who cry out to him day and night? Will he keep putting them off? I tell you, he'll see that they get justice and they get it quickly. And then what is this sentence? However, when the Son of Man comes, will he find faith on earth? What does that have to do with it? Right, this is our first interpretive clue, I think. When the Son of Man comes, will he find faith? He'll find a lot of people praying, but will he find faith? Merriam-Webster, defines prayer this way. Let's see how the culture understands prayer. Prayer is a noun. It's apparently pronounced prayer. It's P-R-E-R. It's totally unfair to non-English speakers that are trying to learn the language. How's your prayer life? George W. Bush might have written the dictionary. Your prayer life. All right, prayer, it's a noun. And here are its two definitions. A, an address such as a petition to God or a God in word or thought. A petition to God in word or thought. B, an earnest request or wish, which sounds similar to the first one. And that kind of seems in keeping on the surface level with what Jesus is talking about here. There's earnestness in the widow's pleas, and she's persistent in her attempts to get the judge to act justly towards her. And this is how parables work. You know, the whole reason that these stories survive, that we understand truth via story, they work through identification. You know, our minds immediately go to, okay, who in the story is the God character and who in the story is the me character? And once we sort that out, then we can begin to understand what maybe the story is trying to tell us, a lesson we can learn about, I guess, how we could come to know God in the same way as it's being communicated. And so who's the us in this story? Well, it's not the judge, right? We're not the ones with power. We must be the widow, the persistent widow. And so God then would have to be the judge, the one with power. And so if you look this up, if you check out other people's messages, or if you grew up in church, I mean, the majority of the ones that you find work an interpretation that's something along the lines of keep praying until God hears and changes your situation. Don't give up. Because look, if even a jerk like this judge is moved to action through persistence, God's like way better than this guy. And he'll definitely help you if you don't give up. So keep going. There's nothing inherently wrong with that interpretation. I mean, who am I to judge? But I don't think so. Because of course persistence is like, oh my man, we're raising children, and I feel like this is the lesson for years is like, don't give up. Like, don't give up. Please. It's just endurance. All of life is learning to stay in it, you know? And so there's not like, you know, persistence or this interpretation is unhelpful. Like Dallas Willard says, grace is not opposed to effort, but it is opposed to earning. So, yeah, don't give up. But, the longer I hung out with this thing, the more I thought, I'm not sure if that's what he actually was getting at here. Because Jesus, like by anybody's analysis, is like a master storyteller. And as a master storyteller, couldn't he, like, I don't think he was just shooting from the hip with this thing. And if he had given some thought before he told this story, could he not have found a better correlate to God than this judge? Who, aside from the fact that we associate God with judgment, has nothing in common with God as Jesus revealed. There's not even there's nothing in there that seems like the character of God as Jesus understood him. And so there's a problem there, at least for me, or a clue. And then the other one is like the widow. I mean, like, she's a little unhinged, you know, if you look into this thing. Like, she needs help. It's a tough culture to be navigating alone in as a woman. But if she's harassed the judge to the point where he's beginning to fear for his physical safety, and that's what moves him to action, that makes me kind of say, okay, that's me? That's the positive role model for prayer? Like, does this whole scenario strike us as a particularly healthy prayer model, given some of those? So I came up with some book titles around this interpretation, and this is the first one. It's called Harassing God. You've annoyed others into giving you what you want. Why not do the same with God? And another one is in praise of human effort. Learn to outlast God and finally get what you want. I don't think there are Christian bookstores anymore, but if there were, those things Need to be trademarked. It's March Madness. Everybody's rooting for St. Peter's Peacocks. We all love an underdog story. You know, you want the underdog to come up on top. This is an extreme case, is it not? Where we're the underdog, and God is, I guess who would God be in this case? University of North Carolina. Do you see how this is a strange power structure? And it's not in line at all with how Jesus described the power structure of God's self-giving nature, who goes lower and lower and lower and doesn't sit in judgment, unwilling to be moved until we've proved suitably the depth of our desire. The power structures are inverted in Jesus' communication of how a reality actually works. As Paul says it like this, and he's always so kind. He says, "Are you so foolish?" That's what he says to the Galatians. "After beginning with the Spirit, are you now trying to attain your goal by human effort?" And so I just wonder, could the absurdity of these characters be the point of the whole story? Like, is it possible for us? Okay. So have you ever watched like British comedy from like the 60s? Right? But it takes a minute to understand what's happening, does it not? You have to learn the sense of humor. You have to learn the sense of humor. And they speak the same language as us. And they were, a lot of us in this room were alive at the time that these jokes were being recorded. And still, that much of a time and culture gap makes it hard to understand the humor. We're dealing with Aramaic words written down a little bit later in Greek, translated a bunch of times into our language from somebody who spoke them 2,000 years ago. I think there's a chance he's joking. And he's telling this story with a wink. And we take it all so serious that we can't see that. And so then we just try harder. I just have to try harder. I have to try harder. That's what it says. He's saying to try harder. That makes sense. The inductive Bible study method, I don't want to brag, but I'm schooled in the inductive Bible study method. As a 21-year-old, I took the School of Biblical Studies in Kona, Hawaii, where I went simply to learn. It's a testament to my devotion to my education. I boarded a plane and went to Hawaii for a few years, and I learned the inductive Bible study method in the prime thing, the number one interpretive tool. You have to start with context. We can't understand what the words mean unless we take them in their context. And so we have to look around the verse to understand what's really going on. So get out your different colored pencils and begin to highlight with me as we take a look at the context. Right after this parable, Jesus tells another parable, and he tells this one. It's also about prayer, he says. And this one I feel like is a little bit more famous. It's easier to understand. And it's two men went to the temple to pray. So it's about prayer. One of them was a Pharisee, and the other one, which is a religious person, the other one was a tax collector, which was not like the one across the street here where you get your driver's license. Like that, nobody liked the tax. It was even more annoying than trying to get your driver's license at the tax collector office, interacting with tax collectors, because they were turncoats. They were Hebrew people, subjugated people who had left their own people to get a cushy job with the empire and were now extorting their own people. Or so I read. So tax collector's not the good guy. The Pharisee's the religious leader. They ought to know what's going on. And this is how they prayed. The Pharisee, he stood by himself and he prayed, "God, I thank you. I just thank you so much that I'm not like other people. Thieves, rogues, adulterers. You should get a look at these people." Or this guy, right? He's looking around for inspiration, and he's like, "Oh." He said, "God, I just want to remind you, I fast twice a week, and I give to thee tithes of all that I earn." But the tax collector stood at a distance, and he would not even look up to heaven. He beat his breast in sorrow, and he said, "God, be merciful to me, a sinner." And Jesus says, "I tell you, this man went down to his home justified," which means clear-sighted, made right, rather than the other. For everybody who exalts themselves will be humbled, and those who humble themselves will end up being exalted. And Jesus loved these statements. Let me reverse the logic here. Let me take something that's familiar and turn it on its head and help us see that reality doesn't work the way that we think it does. The power structures are made up. We made them up. And they don't go on. They can hurt us in the physical, like it'd be nice if you just say that and then drop out of society or something. But we're here to learn, and we learn through pain. And so the systems are here to help us become free so that we can see that they actually don't have the last word. They're our teachers. They're not our authority. Jesus loved to flip these things around. This is what he says in Matthew 10. He says, if your first concern is to look after yourself, you'll actually never find yourself. But if you forget about yourself, call off the search, and you look to me, you'll find both yourself and me. Okay, this is part of the context too, and I'll get there. C.S. Lewis, he said, I pray because the need flows out of me all of the time. I'm not doing it, it's just happening. Waking, sleeping, I find myself praying. And then he says this, it doesn't change God, it changes me. So my awareness of this prayer that's happening, it's God's prayer back to God. And my awareness of the reality of this, I'm not sure. It seems there's scriptural evidence for circumstances being changed through prayer, but maybe at a deeper level, what happens is as we align ourselves with this prayer that's happening, we find that we're changed. And I think prayer changes who we are. First of all, prayer, depending on how we understand it and how we approach it, prayer reveals who we are. We see in these stories, the story of the Pharisee and the tax collector, what Jesus seems to remind us, talking about prayer, is that who we are isn't what we do. Or what we're doing, our best behavior, our worst behavior, our best ideas, our most scattered and half-cooked ideas. The way that we operate in this world is an extension of who we believe ourselves to be, but what we do isn't who we are. Okay, they're connected, but what is it now? That's why they call us human beings, not human doings. That who we are is located at a place deeper than our behaviors. Our behaviors can help us as indicators, because we can say a lot of things about what we believe, but then if we pay attention to how we're living, we begin to see, I don't know that I believe what I think that I believe. It's helpful in this way. I think the story of the persistent widow reminds us that we're more than our desires. Who we really are is more than what we think we want. Even our best desires, like hers, for mercy, for justice. If we approach prayer in a way that allows us space to commune with God, to rest in the presence of God, and to examine ourselves, what we begin to notice over time is that a lot of the time we think we know what we want, but we don't even really know what we want, let alone what we need, right? It's hard to nail down the wants for real. There's all the little, the stuff you're chasing around, but the real desires, let alone what we actually need. And the louder we are about what we sense we lack, the less in touch we are with what we actually already have. Okay? Garth Brooks warned us about this years ago when he said, sometimes I thank God for unanswered prayer. I thought I wanted that. It would have been bad. I can't remember the verses, but I think that's probably what he was getting at. Yeah? Okay, thank you. Got confirmation from the sound booth. You're like Oracle. What's that? All right, context. So Jesus tells these two parables. The one of them helps us understand our main verse, I think. But just before this, if we look at the verses just preceding the story with the widow, we read one of Jesus' most famous sayings. This is Luke 17, 20 and 21. The Pharisees are bugging him about the coming of the kingdom. They're always trying to trap him. And they're asking him, so when will this kingdom come that we're waiting for and that you keep talking about? And Jesus responds like this. He says, the kingdom will not come through careful observation. You won't find it with your senses. And nobody's going to be able to say, look, it's over here, actually. This is where the kingdom is, or there it is. Because the kingdom of God is within you. It's within you. I don't want to talk too much. I do want to mention, if you look this up in your Bible, here's what it'll say, among you, or in your midst. But I feel like I always heard the kingdom is within you. I don't know if I was reading a different version. And so as I like to do, I looked into it, and I found that most interpretations do say among you, except for the King James version, which I don't remember reading growing up. Were we a King James family? Oh, a little bit. All right. We dabbled in the Old English. King James, New King James, and a couple other translations say within you. All the rest of them say among you or in your midst. And so I looked at the word, and the word that's translated into English as within, what its actual meaning is within. It means the inside. It's only used one other time in Scripture, and it's when Jesus is talking. It's that one where he says, he's kind of giving the Pharisees a hard time, and he says, you take care to wash the outside of the cup, but you don't clean the inside of the cup. And that's the same word there, inside, within. And so you couldn't read that verse like, you wash the outside of the cup, but you don't clean the in your midst of the cup, or you don't clean among the cup. You don't clean in the area of the cup. Like the word means within. And here is my hypothesis. He said this to the Pharisees. And I think over time, as we're translating scriptures, there can be this thought, well, he couldn't have meant that the kingdom's in those guys. They're the ones who killed him. They're the bad guys in this story. There's no kingdom there. He must have meant, okay, I think this can also mean among, and it goes from there. That's just my theory. But the point of bringing that verse up, and as to what we're talking about here for context, is that Jesus says before he begins to teach them about prayer and the persistence of this widow who is pleading for her life, comes this reminder that you already have what you're looking for. What you seek in its ultimate form exists already within you. It's hard to locate at the surface edge of ourselves where all the needs and the wants are pinging around. But at a deeper place is the kingdom of heaven, is rest and wholeness and the experience of harmony, is this place where we aren't afraid. We may not love our circumstances. We may still find in that place a desire that they change. But from this place, there isn't fear or urgency or anger or frustration. They're around, but they aren't the core energy, how we understand our life. And so what Jesus reminds us about prayer is that prayer might be most effective if we approach it as a method to cultivate this inner silence that listens and that rests in the kingdom of God, that surrenders into this place. The promise that the presence of God is with us, and no matter our circumstances. Where can I go to hide from your presence? Psalm 139, where can I go? I could go to Sheol, the land of the dead, the closest thing the Hebrews had to an idea of hell, and I would find you there, and you would find me there. Where? See? Let's see. So Jesus' other sort of major theme, if you look into what he taught about prayer, was be on guard, keep awake. He says this, be on guard, stay awake. That's Mark. Luke 21, stay awake at all times. Pray that you may have strength. Stay awake, be on guard. Pay attention, listen. Listen, prayer is listening. Prayer is attention. Frederick Buechner, one of my favorite writers, said he could summarize all of his writings, all the wisdom that he's gained in a long life with these words. Listen to your life. Pay attention. And approach this listening as prayer. So by pay attention, I'd say first we could think, well, what are the thought loops? Have you ever caught yourself thinking something that you wish you weren't thinking and you didn't realize you were thinking it, and all of a sudden you notice that you're thinking that? And you think, that's a terrible thing to think. Who put that thought in there? How long have I been thinking that? Oh my gosh, I've been thinking that a long time. That's a mean thing to say to yourself. If that was somebody else saying that to you, you wouldn't hang out with that person anymore. Pay attention to what you're thinking. Just notice. And some of them are good and holy. And feed those, Feed those thoughts. And let the others pass. Pay attention to, if we're staying on the inside for a minute here, pay attention to the energy with which you complete your tasks. This has been a big lesson for me. Lately, I find that I can get a lot of stuff done when I'm running high on anxiety. I can get a lot done, and it feels terrible. And I'm just trying to get it done so I can get to wherever the thing is that I want to be doing. And when I notice that more and more, I find that I can just let that go. And then you know what happens? I don't stop doing the task that needs to get done. I just start enjoying it instead of trying to power through it. You know who's taught me this? We have a delightful little cat named Butter. We had a neighbor across the street. He told me one day he was moving, and I said, "Where are you going?" And he said, "I'm going to travel the country." And I was like, "That's cool." He's like, forever. I plan on, this is going to be a never-ending tour. And I was like, "How are you going to fund that? What are you going to," because he worked at a restaurant. I was like, how are you going to, you've been stashing some cash away or what? And he's like, "No, here's what I'm going to do. Have you heard of the cats of Instagram?" And I said, "No, I'm not on social media." And he's like, "Well, if you take pictures of your cats in beautiful places around the world and post them on Instagram, if enough people like it, then you get, commercials or whatever, the ads will start. So he's like, I got this adorable cat. And so we're going to hit the road together and just, take it all in like Woody Guthrie." And I was like, "Man, that's awesome. Okay." And he left, and then his cat came to our house, like a couple days later. His cat came back, and he never did. So I don't know if you forgot her. My suspicion is she's like, "I didn't sign off on this. I'm not going to be your model. I don't want to live in your van." And so she just got out at the first gas station and made her way back home. And so if you're listening, you can't have your cat back. I love her. But she's really skittish, and in the mornings, when I'll get up before everybody else and I'll sit in the couch and pray. And a lot of times the anxiety is there in the prayer, and it's just doing the praying for me. And And she won't come anywhere near me when that's happening. But when it starts to settle out, she comes and hops on my lap and like kneads my leg. And I'm telling you, I'm sitting in the same position. Like, I don't know what the sense is that animals have, but she doesn't want to be around when the anxiety's there. But when the anxiety leaves, she comes over. So pay attention to that. I've also noticed when I'm getting things done at the house, I tend to start like 14 or 15 projects simultaneously and then just bounce from one to the other. And it'll get a little chaotic sometimes. And if she sees me coming in that mode, she's terrified. She runs, she cowers. Like, I'm always nice to her. There's no reason for her to be afraid of me. And so it used to bother me. I'm like, what's she afraid of me for? Like, I thought we understood each other. Remember just this morning, you were kneading my leg. But what I've noticed is that if I see her doing that and I slow down, I'm talking like from one step to the next, she doesn't run. She immediately responds to me slowing down. And then she's cool. And I walk by. And she's like this living reminder in my yard to just like calm down. Just, it's okay. It's okay. And all of this seems to me like prayer. It's how I understand prayer these days. It's just listen to your life. Pay attention. Like the clues are everywhere. Thomas Keating, he says that in this parable, we're the unjust judge and God is the widow. And that we are trying so hard to ignore, but God won't stop harassing us. Like the song we sang this morning. He keeps knocking walls and tearing down lies, and finally we're just like, oh God, all right, fine. I give up. I'll pay attention. Simone Weil says, attention, taken to its highest degree, is the same thing as prayer. All right, I got one more little section here, but we'll get through it quick. I titled it, Jesus Was Jewish. And I titled it that because he was expressing his understanding of what prayer is from his tradition. He was proudly Jewish. It doesn't seem that he planned on starting a new religion. It seemed like he was trying to live out Judaism as he understood it in its purest form. He probably had a pretty good understanding of it. In Judaism, in Hebrew, in ancient Hebrew, there are a handful of different words for prayer that get translated into prayer, but at least 5 of them. But the most commonly repeated one by far is this word, tefillah. And it translates in essence to judge oneself. I didn't see that coming when I started looking around here. To judge oneself is the most commonly repeated word for prayer in the tradition that Jesus teaches us from. So the Hebrew word for prayer means something like self-evaluation. That sounds a little navel-gazing. You got to be careful with the navel-gazing, Like, I don't know. Depends. Depends how you're approaching your navel. The most famous prayer in Hebrew is the Shema. And the Shema is said by the Hebrew people for thousands of years now to mark the beginning of the day and the end of the day. It's also the first prayer taught to children, and it's the prayer recited at the deathbed. Shema marks the beginning and the end of our individual days and our time here. And it goes like this. Do you guys want to try it in Hebrew? No. Okay. Fair enough. We'll just read the English then together with me in it. 1, 2, 3. Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God, The Lord is one. Every day. The next line is, and so love the Lord your God with all of your heart, with all of your mind, and with all of your strength. And this is where Jesus gives us the great commandment. It reads, the Lord is one, so, you be one too. The word Shema is untranslatable, okay? It doesn't have a direct correlate in our language. And generally speaking, if we encounter a word that can't be directly translated into our language, what that shows us is that we are close to the core of another culture, that part of a people that is so unique that it can only be expressed from the inside. The rest of us are trying to understand what they might be getting at. And so Shema, untranslatable into English, and in representing what is unique, what was unique about ancient Judaism, maybe their most radical feature of the day is their understanding that God cannot be seen, but God can be heard. God maybe is too close to be seen, but can be heard as we listen. Shema means many things. It means to hear, to listen, to pay attention, to understand. It means to internalize, like to take it in truly. And it also means to respond in some way. There's a response. But I read this so many times that I have to believe it's true. Shema does not mean to obey. In biblical Hebrew, there's no word that means obedience. What? So okay, hold on, let me get this straight. You got 613 commandments and no word for obedience? Do these things and be blessed. Do not do them and be cursed. That sounds like obedience. The rabbis on the internet really want to make it clear. There's no word for obedience in Hebrew. There's this word Shema, and it means hear, listen, understand, internalize. What does that mean to you? What's the difference between understanding and obedience? And reflecting on it, some things that came to my mind were this invitation to seek. See, obedience, if our operative mode is obedience, what we need is clarity and answers. We need to have some really clean lines so that we can know for sure that we're obeying them. It's not a bad thing. Jesus says, obey my commands. Like, there's obedience is. There are times when you have to grit your teeth and just hang on to what you know you're meant to be doing, right? This is like, but understanding is different than that. Understanding values openness and listening over answers. Answers offer clarity. Clarity gives us a chance to obey, to agree or to disagree, to stay or to go, to rebel or to do our best to do it right. Understanding and hearing lowers barriers. Think about the last time you felt truly understood by somebody. Think about the last time you found yourself in a position where you realized that grace and mercy were things you didn't deserve from this person. There's been conflict. And the conflict has muddied the communication lines. And there's been arguing and misunderstandings. And remember how it feels to be understood by somebody. You realize, there's no business in this person taking the time to continue to love me and to keep their walls down enough that they can understand where I'm coming from. You know, I hope you've had that experience. I've had that experience. Obedience is kind of like, fine, all right, you know what I mean? I'll do it. And it's helpful in seasons. But hearing and understanding lowers barriers. It circumvents defenses. And what it creates is a kind of stability that comes from two lives becoming one. Understanding. So when the Hebrew people teach us about prayer, and when Jesus tells us these stories, and I'm going to conclude with this, what I hear is that all of life is an opportunity to learn to listen. To listen to each other in a way that lowers our defenses. You know, you can understand without agreeing. Like understanding and agreement aren't the same thing. And you can bless another person for their perspective and still stand firmly in yours without apologizing. This can be done. And that's prayer. I mean, the bulk of the New Testament is concerned with unity. How do we get all these people and all their ideas and all their differences together in the same room? What is it at the center? What is strong enough to hold together these things, these people that seem so different? Can we reach for that level of trust and understanding? Can we see that the ways that we see and approach things differently actually refine for ourselves? This is iron sharpening iron. If everybody's thinking the same way I am, historically that's how, then you get like, I think they call it a cult. They don't have a good history. Yeah, we need each other and our different perspectives if we hope to understand what we can't possibly ever fully understand. Understanding is humility. It's this letting go. And the way that we listen to one thing is the way that we listen to everything. Do we listen are we aware of the preconceived judgments that kind of build barriers and walls? Or do we say, oh yeah, I know that thought, but what's this person really saying? Do you see? And this is how God shapes us. This is Jesus' most famous teaching on prayer, and it's just a couple words, and we'll close with it. It comes from Matthew 6, the beginning of the Sermon on the Mount. Jesus says, when you pray, go into your inner room, which his audience would have understood to be a space within the heart, not a physical location, because only the very wealthy had homes with more than one room. There was no prayer closet. The prayer closet's here. When you pray, go into your inner room, this place of rest. Close your door. Close your door. Door is a word that also means opportunities. So just do this one thing instead of many. Don't babble. Your Father knows what you need before you ever ask. And so give the asking a rest and wait and listen. This is where we find the kingdom of heaven, and it's already here. When we rest in this place, there is nothing to be afraid of. Amen. All right. If you would like to receive prayer for anything or even just a blessing, you can feel free to come up. And there'll be people who would love to pray with you and pray for you and sit with you. You're welcome to hang out for as long as you like, but we are officially dismissed 3 minutes early. Let the record reflect. See you guys next week.